Hello. I'm Pastor Dana. I'm the Bible teacher. And this morning, we're continuing our series on the brain in the Bible. That's what we're calling it. And we're taking some deep teachings from Scripture and connecting them to some insights from Dr. Jordan Peterson from the 12 Rules for Life. And one of the things that you can do, you can watch this message, you can listen to a podcast of this message, and you can get the discussion notes, which I forgot to do. I forgot to get run off, but those are always on the same site. Just go to Brain and Bible and you'll find everything there. And also, you'll find sermons with my friend Dave Householder, we're kind of doing this together. And he's preaching a totally different message now, I've discovered, as I've been watching his. But that would be the case, but there's some similarities. It's just kind of fascinating, so it's pretty fun. All right, so here's a picture. And this is Kaylee. Kaylee's our granddaughter. She had swim practice at their community pool. And they have like swim teams, the community center, the different neighborhoods. So there's one neighborhood against another neighborhood. It's good because I don't have to go that long and then I'm done, It's not like an all-day affair. Like some of you parents, your kids are those club teams or you're coaching or something, Rob and TC, people like that. And so anyway, so she's had swim practice. So I'm wading in the kiddie pool with our other granddaughter, Elise. And there's other parents there at the practice, and there's other kids. And then at the wading pool, this cute little girl, the cutest little girl shows up. And she's so full of energy, and she wants the other kids to play with her. But the way that she wants the kids to learn to play with her is she walks right up to the kids who don't know her, and she just splashes water right in their face. And then she does it again. And then she puts her face in the pool, and she starts spitting in the kids' faces. Okay? So, I'm looking around for her mom or her dad. Instantly. And they aren't anywhere to be seen. Of course. See, real soon what happened is that it was the who can avoid making eye contact with this kid game. That's what we were playing at the pool. And all the little kids there, and me, well, guess what the kids do? They all leave. They jump out of the pool as if like a shark ended up in the wading pool. Well, I can't get up that fast, and I'm not going to run with those kids, So I just stayed there. So, that little monster comes up to me. And she goes like this. I go, this is the look. Okay? Now, this look is generational. It's been passed down for hundreds of years. This is the look of my mother. This is the look of her mother. And I did know my great-grandma Nana. This is the look of Nana. They're all Russian from the steppes. So this is the look that says, don't you dare. If you like Harry Potter movies, this is what it looks like. Thank you. That's the look. I don't leave. Sure enough, she stops splashing. She quietly goes to try to find her mom. Welcome to rule number 5. Don't let your children, next one, don't let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. Well, I finally see Mom later, much later. And the little girl's in the pool again, by herself. And Mom's not watching her. Of course. Mom's too busy looking at her phone. Now, I'm going to tell you another story. Nancy's parents lived in Turkey for several years, and when her father worked there in Turkey, in Istanbul, and when Christina was born, this is their first grandchild, and we're here, and so it's kind of like, how'd you like that if you never got to see your grandchild? So, when she was 8 months old, we went to Turkey for a month so that we could spend time with her, with my in-laws, right? In Turkey. It was great. It was fascinating. Christina is up there. That's when she was 1, so this is close, to 8 months. And a highlight for me was we would take her everywhere we went, and Turkey, believe it or not, has a lot of Turkish people. Okay? Now, we have a lot of Turkish friends, we do because we have a lot of Turkish friends that, that I know who are school teachers and so forth, and so I don't look like Turkish people. Neither does Christina. Next slide. Go back to her. Go back to Christina. Kind of blondish red hair. If she gets sunny, then it becomes real blonde. And it's as if I had this doll. So we're on the ferry, because they lived on the Asian side. So we're taking the ferry over to the European side, Istanbul, and I'm holding Christina, and a Turkish lady comes up to me. She goes like this. And I go, all right, so we're on a ferry, we're on a boat. Me, Nancy, and by the way, Turkish people generally over there, one of the things you'll notice it here too, but there's a lot of other people, but they're a lot shorter than I am usually. So I'm like above everybody. So I give Christina to the lady. So she's holding the lady. Then she starts passing the lady around the whole boat. And and Nancy and I are just kind of watching, and that whole boat turned into this big smile fest. Right? Now these were not these are people going to work. These were not happy, joyous people, But all of a sudden, everybody is laughing, and they're all passing around this baby. Interesting. See, one of the things that Mom forgot at the pool is that after about 4 years of age or so, most of your child's socialization is going to come from their peers, not from their parents anymore. In other words, if you want an emotionally healthy child, you do whatever you can to help your child become the kind of child other kids want to play with. And if you've got a child who is attractive, and attractive meaning attracting, and who other kids want to play. A lot of you are teachers or former, you know what I'm talking about, right? Who want to play with, and guess who else likes to be around them? Other adults. Like on the ferry, on the way to downtown Istanbul. You see? Not only is it about your child's life, you can literally change the community around you with a healthy, excited, well-behaved, inquisitive child. In other words, not the smartest kid. One that other kids want to play with. Not the best in sports. No. One that the other kids want to be around. For the first 4 years of childhood, those 4 years, the number one job for the parent is to promote their child's opportunity to be liked by children and adults. Now here's the dilemma. Your child needs to learn boundaries, and they need to learn them in their first 4 years. Why? Well, here's a quote from Dr. Peterson. From about 4 years old and on, peers become the primary source of socialization. Rejected children cease to develop because they are alienated from their peers. Most often, they fall further and further behind. A friendless child too often becomes the lonely, antisocial, and depressed teenager and adult. We need immersion in a social community continually reminding us to think and act properly. When we drift, people that care and love us nudge us in small ways and large back on track. We need those people around. End quote. So once again, who's our model for a human being? Who is the best model for a human being? Jesus. Very good. This is like in Sunday school or preschool. Ask any question and they'll answer Jesus. But in this case, you're right. That's true. Next picture there. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So, the Bible doesn't have many stories about Jesus' childhood. That's a simple fact. Now, why? That's a simple fact, too. the Bible writers didn't grow up with Jesus. The only way that they would know a childhood story is speaking with adult Jesus or his mom. So when we do see a story about kid Jesus, we ought to pay close attention. The story that was read this morning by Barbara is the story about Jesus in the temple, and it's a kid's story. Listen again. Then he returned to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. And his mother stored all of these things in her heart. Jesus grew in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and all the people. So the King of the universe, the creator of all that exists, is obedient to his parents. And he is well liked by all the adults and the children. You see, Jesus is well socialized with adults and children. They want to be with him. And how does he get this way? Is it because he's God himself? No, we already know that he emptied himself of his divine attributes. He was a human being when he's living on earth, just like you and me. No, he is well liked and well socialized because his parents disciplined their child. A well-disciplined child listens under their parents. That's the word, that's the word obedient. What that means literally is listening under. A well-disciplined child listens closely under their parents. Children who respond well to their parents and to their discipline are well liked by other children. They're well liked by other adults, and apparently, they're even well liked by God. I mean, here's one place you want to guarantee God's going to have favor for you. Be obedient to your parents. I'm trying to, all the kids are in the yeah. Hey, baby back there. Yeah. Alexis, be obedient to your parents. That's it. Jesus grew in favor with God. Wow. A well-disciplined child is good for themselves and good for all of humanity. Apparently. And even God's pleased. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is so many modern parents don't realize that discipline is a good thing. Do you agree with me on that? Yes. Those of you who are grandparents, do you agree with me on that? Do you agree with me on that? Those of you who are great-grandparents, do you agree with me on that? Yeah. Well, the word discipline has the same root as disciple. A disciple is a student. A disciple is an apprentice learning from a master teacher. The master teacher for children in their early years, mainly the master teacher in their early years is their parents. So what's the problem? Peterson again. Modern parents are simply paralyzed by the fear that they will no longer be liked or even loved by their children if they chastise them for any reason. Christy's out of town, our preschool director. She said, "You're going to tape this, right?" So now I'm afraid she's going to be sending this to every parent. I just hope it's every parent and not just a few. Okay? Right? Okay. But here we go. They want their child's friendship above all and are willing to sacrifice respect to get it. This is a bad thing. A child may have many friends, but only 2 parents, if that. And parents are more, not less, than friends. See, friends have very limited authority to correct. And I just didn't think about it. So if you have kids or grandkids and they're not hanging out with other adults, trusted adults, good luck. Because if mom and dad aren't doing it, it's going to have to be grandma and grandpa. It's going to have to be uncle or aunt. It's going to have to be you, maybe. See, here's what he says. He says, every parent needs to learn to tolerate the momentary anger or even hatred directed toward them by their children after necessary corrective action has been taken. As the capacity of children to perceive or care about long-term consequences is very limited. It is an act of responsibility to discipline a child. It is not anger at misbehavior. It is not revenge for a misdeed. A careful combination of mercy and long-term judgment. Proper discipline requires great effort. it is difficult to pay careful attention to children. It is difficult to figure out what is wrong and what is right and why. It is difficult to formulate just and compassionate strategies of discipline and to negotiate their application with others deeply involved in a child's care. Any suggestion that all constraints of responsibility and difficulty, any suggestion that all constraints placed on children are damaging, hello, welcome to parenting magazines. Not all of them, but many of them. That's damaging, right? Well, any suggestion that happens, Peterson says, that's perversely welcomed. Right? So another idea. Once the idea that adults are bad and kids are good and kids, are pure and precious so they don't do anything wrong, but it's all the adults' fault. Once this idea is accepted, this allows adults who should know better to abandon their duty to serve as agents of enculturation and pretend that doing so is good for their children. It's a deep and pernicious act of self-deception. It's lazy, it's cruel, and it's inexcusable. No one is to raise your children, particularly in those early days. No one is to have the dominating influence more than the parent. The preschool isn't going to raise your kid. They can help. The government's not going to raise your kid. The further away you get from mom and dad, the weaker that gets. None. Then he says, we assume discipline will irredeemably inhibit what would otherwise be a boundless and intrinsic creativity of our children. We would be wrong. Scientific literature clearly indicates two things on this. Number one, children, we talk about creativity. Guess what? Real creativity, like the artist, real creativity, right? Like the people that we all know, the celebrities and everybody else. Some of those celebrities because they're amazing at what they do. Okay? Not everybody just gets lucky or has a dad that's in the business, all right? Creativity beyond the trivial is extremely rare. That's number one. Two is strict limitation facilitates rather than inhibits creative achievement. You should have figured that one already, right? When somebody's truly creative, a creative genius, we know the stories, right? They're rare, but they're around. What happened? They've got lives where they're always being challenged and things are always horrible, right? They've got these backgrounds that are like, holy mackerel. Well, the good side of that, not the bad, but the good side of that is if someone is truly, really, really creative, then for them to have something to bump against is actually very beneficial, even in a healthy way, when it's healthy bumping. See, a child is damaged far more when those in charge with their care are afraid of conflict and upset. So they no longer dare correct them, and they leave them without guidance. Okay, Little League coaches, you know what I'm talking about? Raise your hand if you understand that. Yeah. Okay, very good too. A child with no boundaries is often ignored by their peers because they're not fun to play with. And adults react in a similar way. Here's a good rule of thumb. Okay, for parents. If you dislike being around your kid, all right, the one you love down to your very soul, the one you say you would die for, if you dislike being around them, how do you think others are going to respond to him or respond to her who don't have near the depth of love that you do up front? My gym, I go in the morning. It's all old people, like me. Guys are there even older, so I can actually look like I'm in shape. Okay? Except for guys that they look like Buzz. And Buzz always looks like he's in shape. He's, 80 or something? I don't know how old are you? 82. So, remember the comparison thing last week? I compare myself to Buzz, but in a healthy way. I want to be Buzz. A lot of us do, in a lot of ways. Not Donis, not Cammie, but the rest of us would like to be Buzz. But in my gym, it's all old guys. But then I go in the afternoon sometimes after work, and it's all young guys, and they're all guys in their 20s. And I walk in to the locker room. There's towels all over. There's lockers open, and there's stuff just thrown everywhere, and cups in the sauna and on the floor and everything else. I don't blame those guys. I blame their moms, mainly. Dads aren't even doing anything, so that's why it's mom. That's why I'm saying that, you know? It's kind of like, oh, my boy, he can do anything he wants. Just throw that stuff around. I'll take care of you. And I'm like, whoa. You see, you can tell easily what happens when someone doesn't have any boundaries and they didn't have anybody to discipline them in a healthy way. Let me look the next slide. If your child does something that makes you dislike, despise, okay, what do we do? See, there's no cookie cutter approach to disciplining kids. Each child is a unique individual. But there are a few key observations that, in general, take place. One thing you learn is you're the boss. You are in charge. Okay? I mean, I even literally say that to Kaylee and Elise. Alexis doesn't know what I'm saying. You know, that's what it probably sounds like to her. Why? I'm the boss. I'm in charge. But you're not my mommy and daddy. I am your grandfather, who is your mommy's father and your daddy's father-in-law. I'm even higher up than they are. That is a consistent message at the Herman house from Grandpa Hanson. Well, what does that mean really? Well, part of healthy learning for your kid is to test out their boundaries, so that's what they're doing. They're testing out their boundaries. How far can I get away with this? What's not acceptable? Well, if this means you've got to pay close attention to the kids. Go out to eat anywhere where you have parents with kids. And there's kids running around. And they're making it miserable for the rest of the patrons. Be quiet. Quiet. Will you keep her quiet? You know what I'm talking about. Everybody's on a phone. Nobody's paying attention. But there are some tables where the kids are eating and laughing and talking face-to-face, eye contact with the adults around them. And they're not interrupting adults when adults are talking to each other. There's no cell phones on that table that are being used. Personal, live, one-on-one, face-to-face, eye contact. The simple thing is you just reward what they're doing when it's good. But you can't reward good behavior. You want to reward anything they do that's kind of close to what you want from them. You just jump on it. And you can't be overly rewarding. What I mean is overly affirming and all that. You can jump on that because that's what you want. But here, you have to pay attention, else you don't get to see that. How do I do it? There's this psychologist that's on Psychology Today. I kind of like this lady. She's got some really good suggestions about stuff. She has something she calls the 3 S's. If you want to look her up, Allison Escalante. Okay? Allison Escalante. And you can listen to this later if you didn't write that down. She's got really good stuff. So anyway, she says the 3 S's. The first is sigh. She knows the brain research, right? So she knows. What am I doing? Remember from rule 1, stand up straight with your shoulders back. I'm feeding my brain with good stuff. She says sigh. I think she just uses sigh because it's an S word, but sigh, And when we're seeing our kid, we probably are doing that once in a while, right? Okay, and then she says, after sigh, see. See what they're doing. See how they're doing it. Is there something about what they're doing that isn't what they're supposed to be doing? The third S, start. Start thinking about something else. Start using the simple tools of helping them to understand that there's appropriate and inappropriate behavior. And do it in a way that a kid will see it. Don't use words hardly at all. Because I see so many parents, and this is over the years, who talk to kids like they're adults when they're little kids. It's like, well, don't you understand? You shouldn't be doing that because you're not supposed to do that because that's not good for other people, da-da-da. No. You got to find other ways to get them close to rewarding them for the good behavior. Sigh, see, and start. What else helps? It helps. Have rules, but don't have too many rules. Okay? Have rules, but not too many. That's like everything in life. Have rules, but not too. I mean, come on. You know, there's 650 some, I don't know, 650 some, I think, laws in the Old Testament. How many do we actually talk about? 10. God was smart. Okay. What are some rules? Well, here's some things that you want your kids to realize. Now, I'm not saying you're saying this to them, but somehow, these are good things. These come from Peterson. I like these things. Your mommy and daddy are the boss. Do not bite, kick, or hit, except in self-defense. That's a good rule. Do not torture and bully other children, so you don't end up in jail someday. It's a good rule. A real good rule. Eat in a civilized and thankful manner so that people are happy to have you at their house and are pleased to feed you. Learn to share so other kids will play with you. Pay attention when spoken to by adults so they don't resent you and might teach you something. Go to sleep properly and peacefully so that your parents have a private life and don't resent you. Take care of your belongings because you need to learn how and you're lucky to have them. Be good company when something fun is happening so that you're invited for the fun. Act so that other people are happy you're around so people will want you around. Now, obviously, we're not going to be able to use adult reasoning with these kids, with our children. Reasoning with a child is not too much use, but one thing does help. Give them a fair warning. That they can do. By the time they're about 3 or 4, they understand what you mean by right and wrong. And they understand stop it. And they understand what's acceptable and not acceptable. Okay? By that time, they understand it. So, yes, we're not going to do too much adult reasoning, but we're going to be consistent with our consequences if they have misbehavior. Anything else? Well, let me see the next one. You see that kid right there? Okay. All right, we don't want that kid. We don't want to attack the kid. We want to use minimum necessary force. Okay? That's experimental. You start with the smallest amount of possible intervention. Every kid is unique. Some kids are highly agreeable, so you don't have to do much of anything. Stop. Okay. Other kids aren't. They're stubborn, and other kids are disagreeable. You might have to go down the list. What do? Well, here's some helpful ones. Peterson says the first one is that's what I like. Glare. Most kids, that's it. That's all you need. Another, verbal command. Hey. A third one, if they're really, really, acting up or something, for a little kid, boo. This forefinger. Everybody practice this on the person next to you. Take your finger and go like this on their hand. Okay, nobody is crying out in agony. All right? But for a lot of kids, young kids, that's enough. All right, what about if they continue to escalate? Well, then you got two places. One's at home, and one is in public. At home, timeout can be very effective. You know why timeout is effective? It's a brain thing again. Did you know that a child's brain is so hungry to discover? That's why they're running around all the time. Don't be stuffing some little kid, like a little boy or whatever, a bunch of Ritalin or Adderall or something like that. Don't give them. Their brain says, I want to discover, I want to describe. I mean, I understand as we get older, that might be appropriate as a last cause. But the point is, they're supposed to run around and not listen because they're exploring. So, How do I stop that kid from having a tantrum and all that at home? I give them a timeout. What's a timeout? Boredom will drive them nuts. 2 minutes to a child. This is from a brain researcher. 2 minutes to a child is like 2 hours to you. Their boredom is your friend. When a child's having a tantrum at home, leave the child in a room and walk out. They're only looking for you to, respond to them, to give them that kind of attention. Walk out of the room. Just make sure you don't have anything expensive within throwing distance. Okay, but what about in public? In public, I've done this now. Once again, when you're a grandparent, you get to do everything over again. Oh, gosh. Okay, you take them, and you literally carry them out. If you're at Target, they're grabbing everything. You grab them, you carry them outside, and you sit on the bench, and you hold them, and you just sit there. And it drives them crazy. And all of a sudden, they stop squirming, and you go, are you ready to behave? Remember, if they're older than 3 or 4, they know what the word behave is. Yes. Okay, we'll go back in. Same as a restaurant. Anywhere public. Take them someplace boring. That's your friend. You have to be ready for this. It's like prepare for war every time you go out. A patient adult will always defeat a 2-year-old. Old age and treachery can always overcome youth and skill. And time lasts forever when you're a little kid. What else can you do? Well, Peterson says it's simple, but it goes without saying. Parents come in pairs. You know the beginning of the word parent? Okay, an ent isn't a big tree walking around. Chell, where are you? Oh yeah, okay, Chell. I throw him a bone. He loves the Lord of the Rings. Now he just walked out of the room. All right. Parents. It means you got a pair of people raising a kid. Okay? Hopefully it's husband and wife, but if not, find another adult or 2 or 3 that are close in your family. Promote the heck out of that. In this day and age, promote the heck out of having 2 parents. Okay? Or having somebody else help. What else? That's the next slide. This one. Don't let your shadow discipline a child's shadow. See, we have that shadow side. In Scripture, we call it original sin, or it's our flesh. It's that part of us that's ready. It's why you don't have to teach a 2-year-old to be violent. Remember I talked about that? It has nothing to do with social environment. A child will be violent because violence is a normal way human beings respond when they're not getting their own way. And they did the research on those 2-year-olds. I said this before. I think I did in this class, or here at church. But 2-year-olds, out of any age, 2-year-olds are the most violent human beings there is. It's just that they don't have much power, so they can't really hurt you that much. We don't learn this from our parents or anyone else. It's not TV shows. This is inherent in us. Violent. Hello. Remember last week, Cain and Abel? The very first human being born on earth is a murderer. And the very first human relationship, Cain and Abel, brothers, ends in death and murder of the best one. Okay? So, that's in us too. So consider your own capacity to be harsh and arrogant and vengeful and angry and deceitful. And we say, oh, I would never do that. Are you kidding? You would never do that? Then you don't know who you are. See that lady right there on the screen? That could be any one of us at any time. It just what sets it off. Well, we don't want our kids to set that off. We have a great capacity for evil as well as good. No adult can be truly tolerant being dominated by an upstart child. Revenge will come. Oh, gosh. Thank God for grandkids, because I remember when I had my own kids, we had our own kids. I learned some things. I wish I would have known that. The cold shoulder. The kid's over now, there's a tantrum and everything else, and instead of jumping in immediately and just act as if that didn't happen and just be, have fun again, right? Because that's what you should be doing, because that's how the brain is wired for a child. No, I'm going to give them the cold shoulder. And the very worst thing you can do, very worst thing, if you want to screw up a kid for the rest of their lives, when they do something good, don't affirm it. It's the worst thing you can do to a child. In other words, look at my picture. Yeah, that's nice. They're doing something you want them to do. We can be monsters, parents and grandparents. All right, so that resentment breeds the desire for vengeance, and there's ways for us to have vengeance that won't get us in the newspaper, or in the news. There are other things we can do, and we do, and we need to be very careful. So what do? You realize this at the beginning, and again, you plan for war. In other words, you realize it. So, if you're at the end of your rope and you walk into a room, there's your kids fighting or whatever, you just say, "Okay, go upstairs and watch a movie. We'll set it up for them." Daddy or mommy or grandpa, I'm just really, I need to be by myself for a while. And you do, because also the revenge is going to come. When you're at that place, and when you're at the place, it makes sense to do that anywhere you are, if you're at work, wherever, but especially with kids, because they're not adults. And all you're going to do is hurt them. I'm not saying all physically even, but all you're going to do is hurt them. So just know yourself. And take a time out. Yourself. Let me have that last slide. Then Jesus returned to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. And his mother stored all these things in her heart. And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and all the people. That's God's vision. Favor with God. His vision is that kind of a childhood where the adults and the kids around you want you there. And you make their life way better. And you expand who they are. It's like passing around an American kid on a Turkish ferry on the Bosphorus Strait. Or, Peterson closes it this way. A child who pays attention instead of drifting, and can play, and does not whine, and is comical but not annoying, and is trustworthy, that child will have friends wherever he goes. His teachers will like him, and so will his parents. If he attends politely to adults, he will be attended to, smiled at, and happily instructed. He will thrive in what can so easily be a cold, unforgiving, and hostile world. Clear rules make for secure children and calm, rational parents. Clear principles of discipline and punishment balance mercy and justice, so social development and psychological maturity can be optimally promoted. Clear rules and proper discipline help the child, family, and society maintain and expand the order that protects us from the chaos and terrors of an uncertain, anxiety-provoking, hopeless, and depressing world. There is no greater gift of commitment and courageous parents that committed and courageous parents can give than this. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them.